Hello everybody and welcome to Mr. Stansfield's education videos. Today we're going to be taking a look at all of the retouching tools in Photopea. So for this particular image and this particular project, we're trying to make pans look like planets. And it's a little bit tough when your planet has a big honkin' brand or text on it. And so let's take a look at what we can do for retouching. So using the menu over here, you can click on this tool right here. This is the spot healing brush tool, and you'll notice that there are 5 tools under here. We're going to be taking a look at 3 of them. So let's go ahead and first choose the spot healing brush tool. Now in general, whenever I'm doing retouching, I always recommend looking at this image at 100%. So if you go to view and then pixel to pixel is a funny way of saying it, but this is going to zoom to 100%. Sometimes I'll even go in a little bit further and go to 200%. It's a little easier. Let's start with this A right here. Basically, if I take my tool and I kind of draw around, it's going to automatically look at all the pixels around there and retouch everything out. In this case, you can change the size over here. Okay, and you can change the size of the brush and then the hardness. I recommend for most things trying a hardness somewhere around 75% for this tool, the spot healing brush tool, and the healing brush tool as well. And then size. You don't want the size to be too much bigger than the thing that you're trying to retouch. So let's try again, a little softer and a little bit bigger this time. So we're just going to go ahead and looking pretty good. This is going to be a pretty easy job for this particular brush. And we're just going to paint around each letter here. And you can do this one at a time. Now you can see here, if you look a little closer, these pixels are not quite lining up. You can kind of see the effect of what's happening. When you zoom out, you can still see there's a little bit of a weird wonky thing on that last part that I just did on that U. So what I'm going to do is back up, and we're going to go ahead and grab the healing brush tool. Now the healing brush tool works almost identically, except that instead of the software looking at what's around the thing that you're selecting and automatically adjusting it, what we're going to do is, again, let's go up here and adjust our size. What we are going to do, and bring our hardness down a little bit, zoom in. You can see if I try to do this by clicking, it says select clone source by holding Alt or K and clicking on the image. So let's hold down the Alt key, and we're going to select an area that we want to copy from, and then we're going to go over here and we're going to copy to. So it does basically the same thing, but we are telling the tool where to sample from. And it's still going to do some math, so it's not what we call the clone tool. The clone tool is going to copy exactly. So let me show you the clone tool next. So the clone tool can be found clone tool can be found right here. It's this little stamp tool. Okay. Now the same thing applies up here. We can set the size and the hardness, and generally I think somewhere around here for most retouching is good. Now let me sample. Again, I hold the Alt key down, and when I hit the Alt and I click on here, it's going to sample. This is going to copy pixel for pixel into the area that I set. So it's good for some things, but if you have any kind of variation of value, I strongly recommend the healing brush tool is probably a better tool. So again, it works very similar. Alt click, and then you copy to the area that you're trying to get the image in. And it's going to look at color, it's going to look at pixels, it's going to look at shading and all that other stuff. So that's going to work most of the time. The clone stamp, though, occasionally you're going to want to clone stamp something. In this case, for this particular image, I don't think I will. Let's go back up here, and the final tool that we're going to look at of these 3 is the patch tool. Now the patch tool, what we're going to do is actually make a selection, and then we're going to drag the selection to an area that we want to sample from. So kind of like the healing brush tool in that sense. I just hit Control D to deselect that selection. What I want to do is actually have a little bit of a tighter selection around this, and then I can click and drag it to an area that I want it to look like. Okay, and it's still going to try to match the color and match the value. So if you had something totally different color, for example, if I went like this, let's go ahead and make a big circle around that. And I dragged this over here, right? It's going to try to match the color, you can see from everything around there, and then it'll just sort of take the textures and stuff like that. So that's different than the clone stamp tool. Obviously, that's not how we want to do that, right? In this case, what I might do is make a selection. Let's get a little bit tighter around here. I'm going to try to copy this out here. It looked pretty darn good. And then if we split it in half like this, I think we should be in good shape. We'll bring that over there. That looks pretty darn good. All right, so then we would finish doing this here. Now there's another way to do this, and what I want to do is grab the Lasso tool. All right, and if I grab the Lasso select here, let's zoom in again, and let's go ahead and grab Skillet this time. And you know, again, we want to we don't want to include as much kind of around there, so I'm going to deselect and then get a little tighter. So we want to have, when we're doing these kinds of selections with the Lasso tool or the patch tool, we want to get nice and tight around the thing that we're trying to retouch. And what we are going to do here is edit fill. So we use that for a number of different things, but in this case what we're going to go to is fill with content aware, and then click OK. So this is working very similarly to the patch tool and the spot healing brush tool. So you can make a selection and then it'll content aware fill. Now I'm going to go ahead and back up a couple of steps. Let's see if the content aware fill will work for that big kind of area in the middle, because I think that potentially is a good demo of this tool. It's going to look around the area of the selection, edit, fill, content aware. Okay. And fill with what it thinks. It's going to look at it. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to fill it with what it thinks it should. Okay, it doesn't quite get there, does it? It's looking at looks like it's looking at the edge over here, so it's sort of seeing this edge. You can see this ET and this line here. So not perfect. I could just retouch this out, or most of the time when I do something like this, I actually want to undo it. So it seems like that patch tool was really the best way. So let's deselect. Control D is the shortcut key, but you can also go up here to deselect. And I think going right down the middle worked really nicely. You know, for the patch tool, why not just go all the way around? Like, let's actually try this with the patch tool all the way around now. And you can see, even though I have that line through there, it's still going to create a circular selection. And then I just drag it over, and the problem is that there's not like an area that, there's not a big enough area for this to go to, right? So that's, I think, why we needed to split it in half. Let's try to get as much as we can. That worked pretty good, and then let's just go ahead and get this guy here. We'll drag it over this way. Good enough.